He found out I cheated in our own bed. Now he's pretending I don't exist and won't even explain why. I never thought I'd be that woman. You know, the one who ruins everything good in her life over something so stupid. I'm Adrian, 32, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around how I managed to blow up my entire life in the span of an afternoon. When Matt and I first met 6 years ago, it was like everything just clicked. We moved in together after only 8 months. Got this cute little house in the suburbs 2 years later. And honestly, everyone thought we were perfect. I thought we were perfect. He was dependable, thoughtful, and stable. Everything my ex-boyfriends weren't. Matt would surprise me with little gifts just because, cooked dinner when I was stressed from work, and never complained when I wanted to binge-watch reality shows on weekends. But after about 4 years, things started feeling, routine, boring. Matt would come home from work, kiss me on the cheek, and we'd fall into the same pattern every night. Dinner, TV, bed, lather, rinse, repeat. The spark that made me so excited to see him every day just wasn't there anymore. And between us, he started putting in less effort. The surprise gifts became birthday-only occasions. Date nights turned into takeout and Netflix, and our conversations revolved around bills and chores. My friends Kelsey and Vanessa kept telling me I was settling by staying with Matt. "You're still young," Kelsey would say during our girls' nights. "You need to experience life before you're locked down forever." Easy for her to say. She was single and constantly posting Instagram stories from different clubs every weekend. Meanwhile, Vanessa was on her third marriage and still acting like she was some kind of relationship guru. But their words started getting to me. Was I missing out? Was this all there was to life? Predictable evenings with a man who barely looked up from his phone when I walked in the room. That's when Jake started at the office. God, Jake. He was everything Matt wasn't in that moment. Exciting, attentive, and very clearly interested in me. He'd compliment my outfits, laugh at all my jokes, and actually listen when I talked about my day. I told myself it was just nice to feel appreciated again. Just harmless workplace friendship. But then came the texting. First about work stuff, then about weekend plans, then about deeper things. Dreams, disappointments, desires. I found myself getting ready differently on mornings I knew I'd see him, wearing the one he complimented, checking my phone constantly for his messages. I was alive again, feeling that rush I hadn't felt in years. "You deserve to be happy," Vanessa told me when I confided in her about Jake. "Matt's clearly not giving you what you need." She didn't explicitly tell me to cheat, but she didn't tell me not to either. And I started thinking, maybe I do deserve more excitement. Maybe I'm too young to feel this settled. I started making excuses to stay late at work. Started telling Matt I was meeting the girls when I was really meeting Jake for drinks. It was just talking at first, I swear. But the way he looked at me made me feel 23 again. Electric. Wanted. The first time Jake kissed me was in his car after happy hour. I told myself it was a mistake, that it wouldn't happen again. But it did. And each time it got easier to justify. Matt was emotionally unavailable. Matt took me for granted. Matt wouldn't even notice if I was getting my needs met elsewhere, because he was so wrapped up in his own world. I never planned to bring it into our home. That was the one line I thought I wouldn't cross. But looking back, I was already crossing lines left and right. What was one more? And honestly, I think part of me wanted to get caught. Maybe then Matt would finally wake up and realize he needed to fight for me. Maybe then he'd see what he stood to lose. But that's not how it happened. Not even close. The day everything fell apart started like any other. Matt told me he'd be working late. Some project deadline he needed to meet. It was the perfect opportunity to invite Jake over. The ultimate thrill. The ultimate validation that I was desirable, exciting, worth breaking rules for. I texted Jake suggesting he come to my place instead of meeting at our usual spot. He agreed immediately. When Jake arrived, I felt a mixture of guilt and excitement churning in my stomach. This was my home with Matt, our sanctuary, our shared space filled with photos of our vacations and holidays together. But the guilt was quickly pushed aside by the thrill of doing something forbidden. Jake brought wine, and one glass turned into 3 as we sat on the couch, inching closer with each sip. "I want to see your bedroom," he said eventually, tucking my hair behind my ear. I hesitated for just a second before leading him upstairs, my heart racing with a mixture of anticipation and the faintest warning bell in the back of my mind, but I silenced it. This was about me feeling alive again, right? The moment Jake and I entered the bedroom, everything outside that room ceased to exist. Not my relationship, not my commitment to Matt, not the life we built together. Just the intoxicating present, the validation I'd been craving, the excitement of something new. As clothes came off and we fell onto the bed, mine and Matt's bed, I wasn't thinking about consequences. I was only thinking about how good it felt to be wanted so intensely again. I didn't hear the front door open, didn't hear the footsteps on the stairs, didn't notice anything until much later when Jake had left and I was alone straightening the bedroom and erasing evidence of what had happened there. When Matt actually came home, not just the phantom arrival I had somehow convinced myself I'd imagined, he was different. Quiet, distant. He barely looked at me when I greeted him with a kiss on the cheek, acting as if everything was normal. "How was work?" I asked, fighting to keep my voice steady, wondering if guilt was written all over my face. "Fine," he replied, the single word falling between us like a stone. He didn't elaborate, didn't ask about my day, just grabbed a beer from the fridge and disappeared into the spare room where he kept his computer. I told myself he was just stressed about his project. Maybe things hadn't gone well at work. Maybe he was just tired. But as the evening progressed, his coldness only intensified. He didn't join me for dinner, saying he wasn't hungry. He didn't sit next to me on the couch for our usual TV time. When I finally went to bed, he said he'd be sleeping in the guest room because he didn't want to disturb me with his tossing and turning. The next morning was worse. Matt was up and dressed before I even woke up, which never happened. I was always the early riser. When I found him in the kitchen, the words he spoke turned my blood to ice. "I want to break up," he said flatly, not looking up from his coffee. "What? Why? What are you talking about?" I stammered, genuinely confused by the sudden declaration. Had he somehow found out? No, that was impossible. He was at work when Jake was here. He couldn't know. "I just do. I need you to move out by next week. I'll stay with a friend until then." No explanation, no anger, no emotion at all, really. Just this cold, detached decision that made no sense to me. I started crying, begging him to talk to me, to tell me what was wrong, what I had done, but he wouldn't engage. It was like arguing with a wall. "You can't just end things without telling me why," I shouted as he walked away, grabbing his keys and wallet. "I don't owe you an explanation," he said. And then he was gone, leaving me standing in our kitchen, completely baffled by what had just happened. I called in sick that day, too upset to face Jake or anyone else. I called Matt repeatedly, but he wouldn't answer. I texted him paragraphs, alternating between anger and pleading, but received nothing in return. It was like he had simply decided I didn't exist anymore. By evening, panic had set in. I called Qley and Vanessa, sobbing as I told them Matt wanted to break up out of nowhere. They were as confused as I was, or at least that's what they claimed. "Did you guys have a fight?" Qley asked. "No, everything was normal." "Well, maybe things have been a little distant lately, but nothing breakup worthy." I conveniently left out the part about Jake, about bringing him into our home, into our bed. That was my secret. And as far as I knew, Matt had no idea. This had to be about something else. "Men are so dramatic," Vanessa said. "He'll probably cool off and come back. But if not, maybe it's a sign. Maybe you're meant for bigger things than being stuck with the same boring guy forever." Her words should have comforted me, but they didn't. Despite everything, despite Jake, despite my dissatisfaction, despite my betrayal, the thought of actually losing Matt made me feel hollow inside. What had I done that night? Alone in our bed, I cried myself to sleep. The bed where just hours earlier I had been with another man now felt enormous and empty without Matt. I told myself this was just a misunderstanding, a rough patch. He would come home, we would talk, and everything would go back to normal. I just needed to figure out what had triggered this sudden change. I had no idea that Matt already knew everything, and I had no idea how completely my life was about to unravel. When Matt didn't come home the next day or the day after that, I started to panic. I tried calling his friends, but none of them would give me a straight answer about where he was staying. They all seemed uncomfortable talking to me, which only confused me more. What had Matt told them? I went to his parents' house, thinking surely they would help me understand what was happening. His mother answered the door, but didn't invite me in. The way she looked at me, with this mixture of disappointment and pity, made my stomach drop. "He doesn't want to see you, Adrian," she said quietly. "I think you need to respect that." "But why?" I pleaded. "I don't understand what's happening." She just shook her head. "That's between you and him." By the 5th day of Matt's disappearance, I was desperate. I called his sister Jenna, who had always liked me, always been on my side, but even she was cold. "Stop calling everyone," she told me. "It's over. Accept it and move on." "But why won't anyone tell me what I did?" I cried. There was a long pause before Jenna responded. "Are you seriously asking that question? Because if you are, that's even worse than what you actually did." The call ended, and I stood in our kitchen completely stunned. What did she mean? What did everyone think I had done? Jake had been texting me constantly, asking why I wasn't at work, if everything was okay. I'd been avoiding him, too overwhelmed by whatever was happening with Matt to deal with our complicated situation. But now I wondered if Jake was somehow connected to all this. Had he said something to someone? Had word gotten back to Matt somehow? I finally responded to one of Jake's texts asking if we could meet for coffee. When I saw him at the cafe, looking concerned but also excited to see me, I felt sick. What had seemed thrilling just days ago now felt hollow and cheap. "What's going on?" he asked after I'd briefly explained that Matt and I were having problems. "I don't know," I said honestly. "He just suddenly wants to break up and he won't tell me why." Did you tell anyone about us?" Jake looked offended. "Of course not. That was our business." Our business. As if what we'd done was legitimate, reasonable, justified, I nodded, not knowing what else to say. "Maybe this is a good thing," Jake suggested, reaching for my hand across the table. "Now we don't have to sneak around." I pulled my hand away, suddenly repulsed by his touch. I need to figure things out with Matt first. Jake's expression changed, hardened slightly. Sounds like he's already made up his mind. I left the cafe feeling worse than when I'd arrived. Jake wasn't the answer to anything. He was just a symptom of my own dissatisfaction, my own selfishness. But I still didn't understand why Matt had shut down so completely, why everyone seemed to know something I didn't. That evening, I finally got a text from Matt. I'll be by tomorrow to get some of my things. Please be out of the house from 2 to 4 p.m. I replied immediately. I'll be there. We need to talk. His response was instant and devastating. There's nothing to talk about. But I wasn't going to accept that. I needed answers, and I was going to get them, even if I had to ambush him at our own house. So instead of leaving the next day, I waited for him to arrive. When he walked through the door at exactly 2 p.m. and saw me sitting on the couch, his expression went completely blank. I asked you not to be here, he said flatly. This is my house too, I countered, and I deserve to know what's going on. Why are you doing this? Why won't you talk to me? Matt stared at me for a long moment like he was trying to decide if I was worth the energy of a response. Finally, he spoke, his voice eerily calm. You really want to know why? Fine. I came home early last week. I saw you in our bedroom with him. The world stopped. My heart stopped. Everything stopped. Matt, I don't. He cut me off. Don't try to explain or justify it. There's nothing you could say that would matter. But we can work through this, I said desperately. People make mistakes. Couples recover from affairs all the time. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. You brought him to our home, to our bed while I was supposedly at work. That's not a mistake, Adrian. That's a choice. Multiple choices, actually. He was right, of course. But I couldn't accept it. Couldn't accept that 6 years could end just like that. I'll do anything, I pleaded. Therapy, whatever you want. I never meant to hurt you. Things were they were stale between us. I felt ignored. So you discussed that with me like an adult, right? You told me you were unhappy and gave me a chance to fix things? Matt asked, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Oh wait, no, you decided to sleep with someone else in our bed instead. There was nothing I could say to that. No defense that wouldn't sound pathetic and selfish. I'm getting my things and then I'm leaving, Matt continued. The lease is in my name. I've already talked to the landlord. You have 2 weeks to find somewhere else to live. You're kicking me out? I gasped. Where am I supposed to go? Not my problem, he said, heading upstairs to pack. I followed him, still trying to salvage something from this train wreck. Matt, please, I love you. It was a stupid mistake. It didn't mean anything. He stopped abruptly and turned to face me. That actually makes it worse. You know that, right? You threw away our relationship for something that didn't mean anything. And now you're standing there expecting what? Forgiveness? Understanding? You don't even seem sorry, Adrian. Just sorry you got caught. His words hit me like physical blows because deep down I knew he was right. I wasn't sorry for what I'd done until I realized what it would cost me. I watched helplessly as he packed a suitcase, unable to find the right words to make him stay, to make him forgive me. As he headed for the door, I made one last desperate attempt. So that's it? 6 years just gone? You're not even going to try? Matt paused, his hand on the doorknob. I already tried, Adrian. For years, you were the one who decided it wasn't enough. And then he was gone. I collapsed onto the floor, finally understanding the full magnitude of what I'd done. Not just the cheating, but the casual way I'd risked everything good in my life. Because I was bored. Because I wanted excitement. Because my friends had convinced me I deserved more than what I had. The next 2 weeks were a blur of packing, apartment hunting, and avoiding the pitying or judgmental looks of neighbors who had clearly heard about what happened. Matt had not only told his family and friends, but apparently several of our mutual friends as well. My carefully constructed narrative of being the innocent, confused girlfriend was crumbling as more people learned the truth. I temporarily moved in with Qley, the only friend still firmly on my side, though even she seemed uncomfortable when I explained what had actually happened. You brought him to your house? She asked, wincing. That's pretty bad, Adrian. I know, I whispered, finally allowing myself to acknowledge the true depth of my betrayal. Jake kept texting, suggesting we should officially date now that I was single, but I couldn't bring myself to respond. The thought of being with him made me sick now. He represented everything I had lost, everything I had thrown away. I tried one more time to reach out to Matt, sending him a long email apologizing and asking if we could meet just once to get closure. His response was brief. I have all the closure I need. Please don't contact me again. A month after moving out, I ran into our friend Chris at the grocery store. I hadn't seen any of our mutual friends since the breakup, so I approached cautiously, not sure how much he knew. Hey, I said awkwardly. Oh, hi, he replied, clearly uncomfortable. How are you? How's Matt? I couldn't help asking. Chris hesitated. He's doing better, actually. Got a promotion at work. Moved to a new place downtown. That's good, I said, trying to sound sincere despite the jealousy burning in my chest. Matt was moving on, thriving, even while I was stuck in Qley's spare room. My life in boxes, my future uncertain. He's seeing someone too, Chris added, and then immediately looked like he regretted saying it. Sorry, I probably shouldn't have. No, it's okay, I interrupted, though it felt like he'd punched me in the stomach. I'm glad he's happy. As Chris walked away, I stood frozen in the cereal aisle, a box of Matt's favorite cereal in my hand, the one I'd automatically reached for out of habit. Matt had moved on completely. New job, new home, new girlfriend. And here I was, still clinging to pieces of our old life, still hoping for a second chance that was never going to come. The reality finally hit me. There was no going back, no fixing what I had broken, no erasing what I had done. Matt was gone, building a new life without me, while I was left with nothing but regret and the harsh understanding that I had done this to myself. Jake eventually stopped texting when I never replied. Kelsey started dropping hints about how long I could stay with her. Vanessa, who had been so supportive of my needs and so critical of Matt before, now barely returned my calls. I found a tiny studio apartment I could barely afford and a job that paid less than my previous one because I couldn't face going back there. Couldn't face Jake and the memories of what our harmless flirtation had cost me. Sometimes I drive by our old house, wondering if Matt ever goes there anymore, or if those memories are too painful for him too. I wonder about the woman he's seeing now, if she appreciates him the way I should have. If she understands how lucky she is to have someone so loyal, so steadfast in her life. The worst part isn't losing the house or damaging my reputation or even losing Matt. The worst part is knowing that I could have had everything I wanted if I just appreciated what was right in front of me. If I'd communicated my feelings instead of seeking validation elsewhere. If I'd been mature enough to work on my relationship instead of destroying it. Matt was right. He doesn't owe me an explanation or closure or forgiveness. I'm the one who made the choice, who prioritized momentary excitement over lasting love, who believed I deserved more without putting in the work to create it within my relationship. Now, 6 months later, I'm alone in my small apartment scrolling through social media and seeing pictures of Matt with his new girlfriend at a mutual friend's wedding I wasn't invited to. They look happy. He looks happy. And I'm still here, haunted by what I threw away, trying to convince myself that someday this hollow feeling in my chest will go away. That someday I'll stop waking up, reaching for someone who isn't there and never will be again. He found out I cheated in our own bed, and now he's pretending I don't exist. And the worst part is, I don't blame him one bit. This story is over, but the next one will leave you speechless. Subscribe now.